All right, we are going to go way up to Montana, and Sarah Bates with the National Wildlife Federation is going to tell us what's happening in that state, which a lot of great, more inspiring things.
Thanks, Jackie, and thanks for the opportunity to share our experience in Montana. I'm here on behalf of National Wildlife Federation, but more specifically speaking about our Montana Beaver Working Group. This is a group of pretty diverse interests that are organized around beaver restoration in Montana. They've been around for over a decade, and they grew out of the Montana Watershed Council. But the Montana Beaver Working Group became a little more formal when we took on coordination last year. And we've been connecting this with larger efforts at Western Water Program growth at National Wildlife Federation. The Montana Beaver Working Group includes some pretty diverse members, people from federal agencies, state agencies, conservation groups, landowners. We are very inclusive. We also include members of the Montana Trappers Association who are active members and engage in dialogue with us about the values of beavers for watershed restoration and managing beavers in a way that can enhance their expansion. Since last year, we've had a regular semi-monthly newsletter that's available to everybody, and I will put my email in the chat here before I finish for anyone that would like to receive it. It's a good way to see how we share information and resources. But we've also met as a group. We've engaged in some very focused strategy sessions, and we've developed action plans for improving policies and practices in Montana. And those are available online, all of our action plans and our reports on our progress. So why don't we go to the next slide?
Emergencies only, Kay, for the next 2 days. Thanks.
Oh, Heidi, I think, is that you? We had some interruption there.
Yep.
Go ahead, Sarah, sorry.
Okay, that's all right. Beavers, like in other Western states, are managed as fur bearers by our Montana Fish, Wildlife, and Parks. We do have some areas that are closed to trapping, and those track back to some really interesting efforts in the past that did involve beaver relocation and restoration efforts. Those closure areas remain, and then there are some other closures for other management purposes. We do have a way to do relocation, but it's not nearly as simple or facilitated or encouraged as in Washington or even Oregon. But we do have, it has happened, and because of some staffing changes at Fish, Wildlife, and Parks and changes in management priorities on federal lands, we actually have some really interesting relocation proposals in the works right now. So we have seen a lot of changes over the past few years in policies and probably more importantly, attitudes and kind of openness and conversation about beaver restoration in Montana. So why don't we go to the next slide. This is a list that we developed out of a workshop that we held in 2017 and out of a lot of engagement with people involved in beavers in Montana. And we used this list as kind of a to-do list for our work in Montana. It identified the areas where we needed to focus to either address policies or develop new information or engage constituencies that were not coming along or not interested or had legitimate concerns. And so our progress we've been reporting on very explicitly with the Beaver Working Group with these documents that I've mentioned that are available online. We have people now responsible for following up on each of these actions. And I thought I'd just give a couple of examples of where we have made progress. There's a mention here of policies on federal lands. Well, in recent years, we've seen forest plan revisions that are including explicit language regarding beaver restoration. And we do have a citizen guide, action guide available from National Wildlife Federation that can guide others into how to do this in other places. The concerns about impacts of beaver dams and beaver mimicry work, we've helped to address by funneling research dollars and encouraging researchers to do applied work in cooperation with the state and federal agencies to answer the kinds of questions that arise persistently about fish passage and other impacts on aquatic life. We've seen agency interest expand dramatically, and even just measured by the people that get our newsletter, you know, there's a lot of dialogue going on, a lot of training, a lot of interest, and a lot of work within both state and federal agencies. And I think most illustrative of what's changed is what's happened with Fish, Wildlife, and Parks engaging in a new pilot project that I'd like to show you the example of here in the next slide. Elisa already gave the heads up about this, which I appreciate because she's been a great partner. But we did develop, in cooperation with Clark Fork Coalition and Defenders of Wildlife, a Montana Beaver Conflict Resolution Program in 2019. And it was, as I said, directly related to concerns that we heard in our original 2017 workshop and in lots of conversations with agency people and individuals. It started as a pilot project to address conflicts on, we thought we would be focusing primarily on private lands. But in fact, Montana Fish, Wildlife, and Parks, the state parks managers stepped up immediately and asked us to come in and deal with some conflicts in state parklands. So the photo here shows Elisa visiting at one of our state parks, working with Fish, Wildlife, and Parks. And this particular photo I love because this was when a neighboring landowner showed up and started talking to Elisa and the wildlife managers about beavers on his land. And it was just one of those serendipitous opportunities to hear his interests, hear his concerns, and answer some of his questions and show him what we were doing here on public lands. So we found the work on state lands to be really good for providing illustrations of what's possible to eliminate conflicts. But we are now working on private lands, especially in cooperation with some land trusts in our area. Our team lead, the staff member that we've shared between our three organizations, has gone through a training program that's offered by the Beaver Institute, which is led by Mike Callahan in Massachusetts. And this provides rigorous training, background, and mentoring for people who are interested in engaging in this conflict resolution work. And it makes sure that the people that are doing this work are doing it to the best possible standards, because the worst outcome of people getting excited about beavers is for them to put in a really poorly built structure, to have it fail, and then have people say, well, this doesn't work. You know, we have to trap beavers, we have to use lethal methods. So we're really trying to convey to people that it works, but it works if you do it right. And so a lot of our outreach is about the opportunities, not just to have this work done with a cost share program on your property, but also to get trained and to learn about the right way to install these structures. So as I mentioned, I will put my name or my email address in the chat, and anyone that wants to get our newsletter is, I'll be happy to add you to our list and answer questions later. Thank you.